Oliver Stone is with us, the three-time Academy Award-winning director and screenwriter of numerous films, including Midnight Express, Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, and now his latest documentary, South of the Border. The website is southoftheborder.com. And Oliver Stone, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tom.
You, sir, have created some brilliant movies and provided me with a lot of entertainment and thought-provoking times over my life. Tell us about South of the Border.
South of the Border was a road trip we took through South America. We had access. Hugo Chavez said, come on down, talk to us, and we did. And he said, don't believe what I'm saying, go out there and see my neighbors. And then we went to 6 other countries, met 7 other presidents, and they told us pretty much a story about change and reform, social reform, transformation in their region, and how the United States was threatening that, and they wanted their independence.
From what I see of the press stuff on this movie, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, Evo Morales in Bolivia, Lula da Silva in Brazil, Cristina Kirchner in Argentina, Ferdinando Lugo in Paraguay, Rafael Correa in Ecuador, and Raul Castro, of all people, in Cuba.
Yeah.
You talked with all of these people, and you say, unfortunately I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm really looking forward to it. But if the press, releases and reviews them, you say that there's a revolution going on, or has already happened, and is continuing to go on in South America that's getting no press in the United States, and pretty much no press anywhere else in the world. What is that?
Well, I tell you, it is a strange story. It's a missile shield kind of defense we have against hearing this, but there's been going on for 10 years. The economic facts and figures bear it out. The World Bank bears it out. These people, democratically elected, have taken control in their countries, democratically elected, and pushed for change, huge change. I wouldn't say revolution as much as a strong evolution. And they're all facing resistance from their local press. Their local press is worse than Fox News on steroids here. Yeah. Their local press is small. It's owned by private people, television, print, attacking all the time, and that's the story you get outside. And the New York Times and all the so-called liberal media, Washington Post, have been some of the worst offenders against the truth in this matter. Not just the joke stations like Fox News, which completely distort the truth and make fun of it like they keep doing. But the point is, it's even seeped into Europe. Europe is more moderate. I'm going over there to England. We're going to open in 30 countries. I'm going to England and fight the good fight. I think the truth will out eventually. And, these people are all facing democratic elections, and they're always under pressure.
These countries, we're talking with Oliver Stone, his new movie, South of the Border, southoftheborder.com.
Is Doc. I know, it's confusing.
Yeah, thank you. As in
There's a lot of information there, by the way.
Yeah, southoftheborder.com. And arguably, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's in fact, give me a reality check here. Arguably, it seems that these south of the border countries that have become, quote, socialist or democratic socialist, let's say,
right,
are not that different in terms of governance and fiscal policy, basically taxing the rich and providing a social safety net for the poor, from Norway, Denmark, Sweden, from the Scandinavian countries. And yet, in the Scandinavian countries, there is a right-wing press, but there's nothing like the kind of, just incredibly brutal attacks that these so-called socialists in the southern hemisphere are getting.
Right.
Is that because in Scandinavia, the populists and the right-wingers and the power brokers have just basically given up, and they've said, okay, the people are with this, and we're not going to pick on it anymore? And in South America, they still think that there's a chance that they can pull off another coup. Like, I was actually in Venezuela the first time that they threw Hugo Chavez out back more than a decade ago.
Well, you're talking about completely different systems. I mean, the Scandinavia, the whole European experience since World War II was, where they fell between Soviet Union communism and the United States capitalism, and they were looking for a middle ground. It's a whole different system. In Scandinavia, you do have a left-wing press. You don't really have one in South America. It's privately owned. The governments of these countries are trying to get a public stations. They put them on the air. They have two public TV stations in Venezuela out of 48. In Argentina, Kirchner has just tried to pass a law, but it's under appeal, called the media law, trying to break up the media monopolies. So that's a fact check.
Do that here.
And number two, it isn't a tax the rich system. They're fighting to get the resources. They're all very rich countries with oil, gas, minerals. They're trying to get those resources, those profits, not going out to multinational corporations, but trying to get control of them for their profits of their own people.
Like Norway did with their oil.
I don't know the story of Norway, but
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe that
the oil in Venezuela, for example, was nationalized in the 70s, but a corrupt class, grew up around it, and they stole all the money. Now he's trying, and it's very difficult, by the way, to run a country. You don't do this by fiat. You take over, and you do it democratically, and you're fought all along the way. But basically, corruption is a big problem in every single country. I'm not going to deny that Venezuela, Argentina, they all have huge problems because of the tradition of corruption going back to Spanish colonialism.
Yeah, well, we have a corruption problem here.
We sure do. And we should look to Latin America because the Argentina economy, the Venezuelan economy, they do have solutions for us where we can move. We are moving anyway into a semi-socialist situation in the United States with this. You can feel it all. You feel it the way the government's moving and putting money into too big to fail stuff. So I think we should be talking with our neighbors and learning together on how to deal with these situations.
I was in Argentina in 2000 as it was falling apart.
Yes, and you know who saved the situation was the Kirchner people.
Yeah,
they came in and they the International Monetary Fund, which is also featured in the film. I hope you mentioned that. They have been a very negative influence for the last 20 years in South America since Reagan, and now they got rid of them. Most of the $20 billion in loans became $1 billion in loans through the years. Yeah. Kirchner said no to the IMF, kicked him out. So did Lula in Brazil. And this is a big victory.
To what extent is Hugo Chávez's idiosyncratic personality, his multi-hour TV rants, his statements before the UN, to what extent is that something that actually plays well with his base in his country, or is that just him being a little weird? I mean,
no, I think it's
take on that cartoon character that we see of him.
Well, it's the nature of, he doesn't have, his argument would be, look, I have to get on the public airways because I can never get any time on the private media. They're always attacking. So it is partly defensive and over-defensive, absolutely. And then number two, his style is definitely macho, and it does offend, I think. I keep saying to people, I think if he looked like Woody Allen or Salvador Allende, he'd be much more acceptable in the United States. The fact is that he's a blunt man, and he's an ex-soldier, and he seems like a tough guy. And he is tough, but he's completely democratic. And the third thing, I just correct one little thing you said. Noam Chomsky wrote very beautifully about it, and those people who were at the United Nations that day who saw him speak, he had the longest applause of any international leader when he came to the podium.
Oh, yeah.
That is to say, he was the most respected. The way the American press pictures it, he's a buffoon, a clown. It's an amazing turnaround of the truth.
A quick question. One of our callers earlier, I mentioned you were going to be on the program, and one of our callers said the phrase "the beast" is a recurring theme in many of your movies. Can you speak to that?
What is it?
This concept of the beast, the kind of underbelly of society.
That was a terminology I used in Nixon, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beast. The beast, I forgot where it came from my imagination. I read about it. The beast is something, a mechanism inside our system. Call it capitalism, call it social control, call it fear, that drives this country constantly and turns over, and no one can get in its way, whether it's a president or a filmmaker or another country. It seems to be a self-perpetuating mechanism that it devours and is extremely violent.
Yeah. We're talking with Oliver Stone, the filmmaker, and his new documentary, southoftheborderdoc.com. Oliver Stone, I wish you all the very best on this. Thanks so much for being with us today.